Hello, I am just going to adjust my camera here. Okay. You'll have to pardon the little bit of a messy house behind me. It's been a busy week, but happy to be here. Okay. All right. Well, I will give it maybe another 30 seconds or so, just to make sure that anyone that's joining is able to make it. But whether you're watching this watching it live or watching it in the future, I just want to say thank you so much for showing up. One of the hardest parts of an active yoga practice is really committing the time to spend with your practice. And so that in itself, you showing up here is a huge accomplishment. So take a moment to send yourself a little bit of gratitude for showing up today. And just thank you for joining Hands to Heart Center, our YouTube channel. For those of you who aren't familiar, Hands to Heart Center is a nonprofit here in Boston that offers free yoga classes to underserved communities. So I'm really happy to be teaching on behalf of Hands to Heart Center. All right, let's get started. So today, all you will need is a yoga mat. I always like to have a yoga blanket or some kind of throw blanket nearby. I think it can come in handy in a lot of different situations. So that would be my recommendation, but completely up to you. And if you have taken one of my classes here before, welcome back. If you are new, my name is Nicki. It's nice to meet you all virtually. I am a yoga and meditation instructor here in the Boston area. So super excited to be with you here today. All right, we are going to start on our backs today. I feel like it's kind of a metaphor a bit for just Friday, the end of the week. Sometimes you just want to lay on your back, it can feel, the week can feel overwhelming at times, and sometimes it can be good to just allow yourself to give in to the support that is being offered to you. And in this case, the support could be the ground. And just acknowledging that the ground is here to support you today. I'm keeping my knees lifted here just for a moment. I will come down fully to the ground in a moment or two, but just to ease myself onto my back, especially if you've been, sitting over all day or on your feet all day, it can feel nice to kind of ease into it. And so once you begin to ease into this pose, start to notice your breath. Notice where you feel the breath. Notice how it shows up. And without judging, just notice how it feels today. And when you feel ready for it, you can also just stay here if you'd like. If you feel up to it, I'm just going to scoot myself up a little bit. You can drop the feet down so the legs are long and the feet are kind of flopped out to the sides here. And to begin class, we'll do a couple of deep breaths together. We're actually going to do what's called a 3-part breath. which is a pranayama practice and just entails driving the breath into certain parts of the body and also focuses on breath retention. And just gives your mind something to do, something to focus on. And so to get started, we can just take a breath in together. And then breathe out through the mouth. And what we'll begin to do is draw our breath into our bellies. So when we breathe in, we typically fill up all the way to, we kind of feel our chests expand. So imagine the breath is traveling from the belly up to the neck. And there's 3 parts to it. So what we'll do in the first part of the inhale is inhale about 1/3 of the capacity of your torso. So breathing specifically into the belly. You can even put the hands on the belly as a way to start. And then we'll hold it there for a moment. And then we'll breathe in 2/3 of the torso, which will kind of puff up your rib area. And then we'll hold for a moment. And then we'll breathe in 3/3 or all of the way into the chest. And so you may feel the chest start to rise. And then we'll hold the breath for a moment. And then we'll breathe everything out of the mouth all at once, a slow breath. So from here, after your next exhale, make it a good one. Breathe in 1/3 of the way into the belly and hold. Breathe in 2/3 of the way to the ribs. Hold. And then breathe in all the way into the chest. Hold at the top. And breathe out. And take a normal breath. And I think I started to mention this, but if you want to place your hands on the belly, ribs, and chest as you go, it can be a good way to help direct the breath. So we'll do 2 more of those. So after your next long exhale, breathe into the belly. Pause. Breathe into the ribs. Pause. Breathe into the chest. Pause. And breathe everything out. Take a normal breath. And we'll do 1 more together. Breathe into the belly. Hold. Breathe into the ribs. Hold. Breathe into the chest. Hold. And then breathe everything out. Allow yourself to breathe normally for a moment. And let's go back to this idea of allowing ourselves to be supported after a long week where we can feel like there's a lot going on in not only our own world, but the world around us. We can often carry a lot of the weight of that. So for a moment, can we just surrender to the support beneath us? And when you're ready, gently start to lift your knees up, placing your feet on the mat. And you might even lift the pelvis up or the seat up a bit, kind of scooting your seat towards your heels in an effort to lengthen the lower back. From here, to the degree that it feels comfortable, grab both knees and bring them in towards the chest. For a moment, just notice how this feels. Maybe do some ankle cracking here if that feels nice. We went on a long bike ride this morning, so definitely feeling a nice ankle release here. And maybe you even sway a little bit from side to side, giving your low back a massage. And then come back to center for a moment. Now, keeping both of your knees lifted, grab with both of your hands your left knee. Pull it in towards the chest. The right knee can kind of just stay where it's at. I invite you to explore and maybe be a little playful here of extending your right leg up. Maybe you extend it all the way up. Maybe you extend it out in front of you. Maybe you extend it out to the sides. Just kind of play around with it. Really get into the feeling of this leg, this right leg being extended. And you might notice an increased sensation if you flex the toes. So if you draw the toes back towards you, pushing the ball of the foot up towards the ceiling. So just kind of play around with this. Maybe draw circles with your foot. Just notice what might feel good to you today. And then when you're ready, you can release, grab onto the right knee with both hands. And with the left foot, draw it up towards the ceiling or in front of you somewhere or to the side. Just be careful. Listen to your body here and really throughout the entire practice. This is your practice. Every body is different. So make sure that you're listening to yourself. Again, just kind of play around with this. Maybe explore different stretches. You could flex the toes. You could also point the toes. That might produce two different sensations. And then when you're ready, you can bring the knees back in. Grab the knees with both of your hands. And now begin to draw circles with your knees. So you can keep the knees on the hands and start to point the knees in the shape of a circle. Starting to kind of wake up the hip joints. And if you've been going in one direction, maybe go in the other direction now. And then release, then you can place the feet down gently. And just for a moment, feel the residue of all of that on your body. All right. We are going to actually come up to a tabletop, which is like kind of the opposite of where we're at right now. So if you're feeling energetic and playful today, one way that you can get up is by rocking the knees, eventually making your way up to a seat, and then coming forward to tabletop. If you prefer to be a little bit more gentle today, that is wonderful. What I would suggest is scooching over to one side and then slowly bringing yourself up to a seat. When you're up at your seat here, you can place the hands in front of you, shift the weight forward, uncross the legs, and then come into tabletop position. All right. Oh, wow, feels good to be up and about. All right, from tabletop position, if you've taken my classes before here, you know that cat-cow is like one of my favorite poses of all time. So I think it's just a great way to really kind of let go and unwind from the week. So that's where we will begin. So with your shoulders over your wrists and your hips over your knees, drop the belly down, lift the gaze, breathe in for your cow. And then round the belly, take the gaze to the belly button, and breathe out for your cat. Breathe in, drop the belly, lift the gaze. And breathe out, round the belly, take the gaze to the belly button. And keep moving through these at your own pace, depending on how your week has been, how your day has been. You might find that a slow variation of this feels best, almost as if you're moving through a bottle of honey with your movement. But if you're feeling energetic and excited for the weekend, maybe you pick up the pace a little bit, starting to warm up the body. Wherever you are, do about 2 more of these. And then come down to your tabletop position again. And from here, another one of my favorite, I guess you could call it poses, but it's just something that I think is fun, is to do body rolls. So kind of like when we were drawing circles with our knees, we're now going to draw circles with our hips. So start to make a circling motion with your hip. See if you can allow the rest of the body to follow the movement. So kind of, I guess maybe the shoulders are working alongside the hips to draw circles with the body, the upper body. This is a great way to provide just some different movement to the wrists, which can be nice. And then we'll go the other way. And then come back to your neutral tabletop. All right, from here, this is where we kind of start to warm things up a little bit. When I say warm things up, that means we could still definitely be gentle, but just kind of offering some options depending on what your mood is today. So from tabletop, tuck your right toes and then step the right foot back. Let's run into my couch. And then with the right foot at the back of the mat, you can stay here and just kind of focus on your core and this feeling of balance in the body. This is one option. Another option is to lift the right foot so it's in line with the hips. Staying here, seeing how in line you can possibly make the hips. And then the last option is to take your left hand out in front of you, reach it out as if you're shaking someone's hand. Just notice what your body wants today. If you're at the full bird dog expression, this one here, just try to focus on the core, maintaining your balance as much as possible. And then you can place the hand down, place the knee back down. And we have been on the wrists for a bit now, so maybe just sit back on the heels, kind of shake out the wrists a bit. And then come back forward gently. And now step the left foot back, curling the toes. You could stay here or lift the left leg or also lift the right arm, which I have to do under my TV. Apartments in Boston. Continue to breathe. And then slowly make your way back down to a tabletop position. Now from here, let's take a moment to push ourselves back into a child's pose. And I like to always mention that child's pose is a great pose for any time in the practice. If you just want to take a child's pose, please take a child's pose. It took me a really long time to be able to do that in public classes because I always felt self-conscious. But then I was like, you know what? You gotta listen to your body. So do the best you can. If you have a blanket, this could be a good option to kind of roll it up and create like a little bolster here. So that when you're coming down to your child's pose, you have something for your chest and face to rest on. Either way, just find a relaxing child's pose. You don't need this to be an active pose right now. Notice how you're feeling so far. Reconnect with your breath. Where do you feel the breath? How does it feel? All right, now from here, if puppy pose is in your practice, that's one place that you could go. If puppy pose is not in your practice, then we'll just actually shift forward back to a tabletop position. If you're coming into puppy, it might still be helpful to come up into a tabletop position first so that your knees are parallel to one another. If you are taking puppy, one way I like to get there is just by walking my hands forward and then eventually dropping my chest towards the mat. And placing the chin on the mat. This is a huge shoulder opener, kind of chest opener. It's very intense. So if this doesn't feel the best to you today, maybe spend a moment in tabletop. Feel free to do cat-cows, any other movement that feels good. And if you're in puppy, you can start to gently, slowly bring yourself back up to a tabletop. And that's where we will meet. All right, now from here, start to come up onto the fingertips. Basically, we're just going to be standing on our knees. I like to kind of slowly get there, especially since we've been down for a while. So slowly start to get yourself up to this position where you are on your knees. And from here, if it's possible, use any assistance that you need, but maybe shift towards the long edge of the mat. So if you're facing the short edge of the mat, kind of moving to the side, still on your knees for now. We're going to come into a supported side plank. So how to get there? I like to start with placing my hand on the ground for some support. Again, if you have a blanket, this can be a good option either for your knees or for your hands if you want to bring the floor a little bit closer to you. So I'm just going to place my hand on the side here in the left, and that starts to lift up my right knee. So I'm going to extend my right leg out towards the right. So my left leg is still bent in this 90-degree angle. I want to try to keep it as straight as possible, meaning the hip and the knee are in line. My left or right leg is extended. I like to place my right foot on the mat. Some people like to kind of tip their toes up, facing up, whatever feels best. And from here, you can either place the right hand on the right hip, and this is definitely a workout, so you can stay here. For a little bit more stability or balance practice, you may lift the right hand up towards the ceiling. If you're doing this, see if it's possible to find as much length as possible between the hands. So is it possible to reach more with your right hand? Is it possible to push away more from the ground with your left hand? So the chest is open and expansive here. I'll offer another option here if you want to do some kind of core workout. You might take your right hand and swing it underneath your left arm here. As you breathe in, then as you breathe out, opening back up, breathing in, sliding your right hand under your left arm pit, and then it's kind of like thread the needle if you've ever done that pose. So it's a little bit of a twist, also kind of activates the core a bit more. You can keep doing that, maybe one or two of those if it feels good. Otherwise, we'll gently start to come out of this pose. One thing I like to do is take my right hand down for some support and then draw the right knee to meet the left, sitting on my heels for a moment here, allowing myself to just take a moment to kind of settle back into practice. We'll do this on the other side now. So if you were using a blanket, you might want to transfer it over to the other side. And then when you're ready, coming back up onto your knees, take the right hand down this time, extend the left leg long. If you enjoy having the left arm extended up towards the ceiling, you can do that now. Reaching with the left hand, pushing away with the right hand. Hold here, and if you would like, if it's fun or comfortable for you, you can start doing those little crunches that we were doing. So bringing the left hand this time underneath the right arm, and then extending back up. And then crunching, extending. Just do a few more of those. And then when you're ready, you can start to come back to your knees, taking a moment to just kind of, sweatshirt is all shifted now. Take a moment to just kind of shake things out. You can shake out the arms and twist the body a little bit. All right, and then we're actually going to come back so that we're facing the short edge of the mat. So just kind of shift to where we were before. And for a moment, again, we'll come into a child's pose. This time, if it feels like something that you want to do, you might explore coming up onto your the tips of your fingers into a little bit more of an active expression of child's pose. Depending on how excitable you are today or energetic, this might feel good. It might feel encouraging. For me, I feel like the change of the seasons is making me a little, allergy-y. So for me today, what feels nice is a traditional child's pose and using this as a moment to allow my body to relax. So feel free to do what feels best for you. Eventually, we'll all come forward into a Sphinx pose, and that's where we'll meet. So walking the hands and moving the body forward towards the front of the mat, keeping the forearms and the palms on the mat, shifting the knees so that they're parallel with one another, and then dropping the hips and the legs and the tops of the feet against the mat. So now that we're in Sphinx, there's a little playing around here that you can do. If it feels nice to have the elbows directly under the shoulders, that's great. If it feels a little intense and you maybe want to play around with it, you can try extending the hands out a little bit further in front of you. There's also a more active version of this pose where you are actively keeping the chest lifted and the gaze forward. The more kind of restorative version of this pose would be to drop the chin towards the chest. And allow the head to really relax here. Wherever you are, take a moment again to check in with the breath. Notice where you feel it now. It's interesting, we tend to feel the breath in different places depending on what pose we're in. This one's interesting because we have pressure on the belly, so it might be interesting to observe. Take one more breath in this pose, and then we'll start to add a little bit of movement here. So go ahead and drop the chin towards the chest so the head is relaxed here. And as you breathe in, we'll simultaneously lift the head and lift the right foot. So as you breathe in, lift the head slowly, lift the right foot with it, maybe lifting the right knee up off the mat as well. And then as you breathe out, release both back down. And then we'll alternate, so lifting the head and then lifting the left foot up this time, perhaps lifting the knee as well. And then release back down. Inhale, lift the head, lift the foot. And exhale, release. One more. Inhale, lift the head, lift the left foot. And exhale, release. Let the head drop here for a moment. Now take your elbows so that they are pointing out towards the sides of the mat. You can cross either hand on top of the other and take the forehead to the tops of the hands. Take a moment for rest here. This is gentle yoga, so as much as we also may want to explore our energetic sides if we're feeling that way, it's also important to be gentle to the body and allow ourselves these moments. All right, and after your next exhale, start to bring the head back up, placing both hands on either side of the chest. And we're going to push ourselves up into a plank pose. So one version of this might be that you lift the chest and the hips, you stay on the knees. You might tuck the toes and lift the knees and the shins as well. Whichever option you choose, this is really just a transition to get us to downward facing dog. So wherever you are, lift the hips up and back, coming into downward facing dog, bend the knees generously here. Push away from the mat with your hands. Reach your hips not only up, but also back towards the back of the mat. So finding a lot of space in the arms and the back. Now from here, start to shift your weight forward and step the left foot up to the top of the mat, drop the back knee down. Untuck the toes and start to make your way up to your lunge position. Place the hands on the hips just for a moment. Allow yourself to settle into this pose. Explore pushing away from the mat with the left foot and the right shin to kind of help you gain some balance in this pose. And from here, a couple of options. For the first one, we will lift the hands up towards the ceiling, or keeping the hands on the hips, whatever feels best. If your hands are lifted, see if it's possible to drop the shoulders away from the neck. Take 1 or 2 breaths here. And then start to bring your hands back down, framing the left foot. And tucking the back toes, there's a couple of options here. You can either come into a tabletop position, like this. You can come back into your downward facing dog. Whatever feels best. Either way, we're going to transition to the other side. So we'll start to shift the weight forward and step the right foot up to the front of the mat, dropping the left knee down and untucking the toes. And once you get up here, if it feels good, breathe in, reach the hands up. Relax the neck. And then place the hands back down. Come back into a tabletop position just for a moment. And from our tabletop here, we'll just do kind of as a transitional pose, a few more rounds of cat-cow. So from tabletop here, breathe in, drop the belly, lift the gaze for your cow. And then breathe out, round the spine, take the gaze to the belly button. Breathe in for your cow. And breathe out for your cow pose. Just do one more here at your own pace. When you're back in your neutral spine, walk the hands forward slightly, tuck the toes, lift your hips up into downward facing dog, keeping the knees as bent as possible. We'll spend 1 breath here, and then we'll shift the weight forward, stepping the left foot forward again, dropping the back knee. And this time, before we come up, we'll take the right hand, place it inside of the left foot. So again, this is a place where a blanket can be helpful. I'm actually going to do that to bring the floor closer to you. So right hand is inside the left foot. The left hand, can you open it up towards the side wall? So now your chest is kind of pointing towards the left side of the room that or I guess the left side of your position, maybe the left side of the mat. So we're kind of coming into this low lunge twist here. Might feel kind of familiar to what we were doing in side plank. Hold here for 1 more breath. And then come back down. And you can remove any props that you were using. And then placing both hands on the mat, you can lift the back knee, step back to downward facing dog, or if you prefer to move through tabletop, you can do that as well. Take 1 breath wherever you are. And then shift your weight forward, step the right foot forward, drop the back knee. Once again, using the prop if needed for your left hand, which is inside of your right foot. Open up the chest towards the right. Reach with the right hand up towards the ceiling. And just breathe here. And then gently come back down. We'll take one more downward facing dog. That's it for the rest of the practice. So if it feels comfortable for you, come into your downward facing dog, reaching the hips up and back, bending the knees. And then from here, drop the knees down. Come back into your child's pose once again. Taking the knees wide, bringing the toes close together. And settling into your child's pose. Okay, so don't be mad at me, but there actually is one more downward facing dog, but you don't have to use it. You can move through tabletop if that is preferred. We're essentially going to come up to the top of our mats in a standing position. So however you would prefer to get there. If you want to push yourself up through downward facing dog, you can do that now, taking a brief downward facing dog, and then slowly walking your way up to the front of the mat. And once you're there, bend the knees generously and fold over, bringing your chest towards the thighs. Start to walk the feet out so you have this kind of wide position here. And then drop your head and your neck, grab opposite elbows, and come into your Raggle Pose. Sway back and forth, nod your head yes and no. Whatever your body is calling for today. And I encourage you for standing up from Ragdoll. How can you make it the slowest, like absolute slowest transition up to standing that feels comfortable? So you can start straightening the body out. Head is the last thing to come up. Whew. And then once you're up, bring the feet closer together, top of the mat. I'm actually going to turn and face you so that you can see me if needed, but you can stay at the top of the mat. I don't know if it's because the sun has changed or I'm working too hard in this gentle yoga class, but I'm hot, so. But it feels good, it feels good. All right, from this standing position here, we're going to come into tree pose, which is simple and basic, but one of my all-time favorite poses in yoga. So tree offers a million options for you to take. One is to place the hands on the hips and spin the right heel so that it's on the left, its inner ankle. And with the right knee, see if it's possible to open it up so that the hip is rotated externally towards the right. This is one option. Another option for the foot is to place it on the inner calf or the inner thigh. You might notice varying levels of difficulty just depending on how your body is today and like if it's windy where you are. And if you like with the hands, you can reach them up towards the ceiling. Another thing people like to do here is take prayer position or even cactus arms here. Whatever feels best for you today, just do that. Now, tree is a great pose to come back to this idea of feeling supported by the ground beneath you. Because literally, we are only still standing or maybe wobbling and falling, which honestly, I'm like swaying back and forth, so that's normal. But when we are standing tall and strong, or when we are wobbling and the other foot comes down to the ground is there to support us and to hold us. So just feel that in this pose, feel the groundedness of the foot kind of relying on the support of the ground to be in this pose. Allow yourself to really kind of surrender to that. And then you can release this down, shake out the feet. Other side, take your pick. What feels best for you today? I won't talk as much on this side, so just explore. See what feels good. Notice your breath here. This can be a pose where we might hold our breath. So we're just trying to focus on balancing, but make sure that you continue to breathe. And release. All right, shake everything out. All right, time check. Where are we at? Okay, so we're going to do a couple more standing poses, and then we're going to come into the relaxing, juicy positions on the floor. So that's what we'll do. So from tree pose, if you're up at the top of the mat here, step your legs into a wide-legged position. Wide looks different for everybody, so don't try to look like anything. Just try to find what feels best in your body. We're going to come into warrior two. So we'll spin the right toes out towards the short edge of the mat. We'll bend into the knee at 90 degrees. So this is where you might actually notice your stance is too narrow or too wide. If it's too narrow, your knee is probably going over your ankle, so you want to kind of widen the stance. If it's too wide, you probably can't reach your ankle. So find like this sweet spot. And once you're there, your back toes are kind of pointed at about 10 degrees or just straight out, what feels most comfortable. If you like to involve the hands, you can reach out to either side with the hands. And similar to side plank, can you find this kind of equal push and pull on both hands? So even though you may have a dominant hand, can you feel like the right hand pulling and the left hand pulling, so creating this openness in the chest here? You can take the gaze over the right fingers if it feels comfortable. And then we'll reverse our warrior. So you can place the left hand back on the left leg, spin the right palm so it's facing up, and then start to draw the palm back behind you over your head as much as feels comfortable. Feeling this kind of side body stretch in the right side here. And then come back to your warrior two. And then straighten the leg, take the hands to the hips, and point both feet forward. All right, we will do that on the other side now. So spin the left toes so they're facing the short edge of the mat. Bring the back toes in slightly, and then bend into the left knee. Find your warrior two stance, and then involve the hands. Take the gaze over the left fingers if it's comfortable in the neck. And then spin the left palm so it's facing up. And start to reach behind you, going into your reverse warrior. Breathe and then come into your warrior two once more. Take the hands to the hips, straighten the left leg, and then bring the toes so they're both pointing forward. Before we transition down onto our backs, we'll take one more kind of fiery pose here, if you will, warming pose. We're going to take a squat. So if you are familiar with Malasana, the pose where you're kind of sitting at the top of the mat right before you come into crow, it's kind of like that, but just wider. So essentially what we'll do is we'll point the toes out at a diagonal. And then again, ensuring that the knees are not pointing further than the ankles. Come into your squat here. Bring the hands together at the chest. One thing that might feel good here is to rock back and forth from side to side, finding a little bit of a stretch in the inner legs here. Continue to breathe. I know this is a tough pose, so just one more breath here. And then release the legs. Come back up to your, I don't even know what stance this is, to be honest. Bring both feet to point towards the long edge of the mat. Bring the hands to the hips, and then gently start to walk the feet together in the middle of the mat. All right, we are going to come down to our backs now. So just get there very gently. We don't need to do anything fancy, but maybe just kind of bring yourself to a seat slowly. Start to bring yourself down. And then keeping your legs extended for a moment, just begin to come down onto your back. Take a moment to just notice. Notice how your body feels and notice where you're at currently. Without any judgment, how do you feel? And then start to gently bring your knees up, planting the feet on the mat. Lift the hips, kind of scooch the seat towards the heels so you can find that lower back extending. And just for a moment, walk the feet out so that they're wide to the edges of the mat and drop the knees in so that it kind of relieves some of the effort of the hips. And the legs, just allow this to be a restorative pose. And then from here, go ahead and walk the feet back in so that the knees are in line with one another. And kind of like in the beginning of class, we can squeeze the knees in towards the chest and maybe even lift the head slightly, give yourself a little hug. Maybe rock back and forth. Just kind of feeling the after effects of your practice. Maybe taking an opportunity to roll off the ankles again here. And then place the feet back down just for a moment. Now go ahead and lift the hips up slightly. Scoot them towards the left. Drop the knees down towards the right. So we'll do this on both sides. It's more of a restorative twist. It is intended to be restorative if there is any discomfort. If you have that blanket, what can be nice is placing the blanket underneath the knees so that the knees don't have to go so far. So just explore how that feels to you. If you'd like to invite the arms to join, you can put the arms out into the T position. And if it feels comfortable in the neck, take the gaze over the left shoulder. Notice where your breath is. And then start to lift the knees up towards the ceiling. Lift the hips and then scoot the hips towards the right side this time, dropping the knees towards the left. Switch the blanket over if you found that to be helpful. If it feels comfortable in the neck, you could take the gaze over the right shoulder. It's a good place to either soften the gaze or close the eyes if it's comfortable. Inviting some more relaxation into your body. And lift the knees up to center. Scoot the hips back so they're also in center. And then for our final resting pose today, there's a couple of options. If you enjoy Shavasana, laying on your back with your legs extended, that is one great option. Placing the hands on either side of the body, keeping the palms open and then the feet relaxed. That's one way. If you are feeling more energetic or you just prefer to sit versus lying down in Shavasana, then that is totally great. So another option is you could gently, very gently, start to roll over to one side and push yourself up to a seated position. If you have a blanket, this is a great place to use it. Either placing it underneath the seat or draping it over the shoulders to provide a little bit of warmth. I'll take a seated position here since I'm already up. And we'll spend a few moments here in this resting pose. I will bring you back when it's time, when it's just about 5 o'clock, if you do have any plans then. So allow yourself as much as you can to surrender into your support. Support knowing that I will keep you on time, so you don't have to worry about the time. Support in the ground beneath you, carrying you, supporting you. And support that in knowing that right here, right now, all we have is our body and our breath and our practice. So can we focus there for the next few moments, allowing ourselves to be. Enjoy this moment of rest. When you feel ready, begin to invite some movement back into the body. You can wiggle the toes and wiggle the fingers. Start to become aware of your surroundings again. Become aware of your breath. Open the eyes if they were closed. If you'd like, you can bring the palms together at the chest. Or if you're laying down, please gently, gently roll over to one side and bring yourself up to a seat. If you want to stay in Shavasana, you can certainly do that as well. I will sign off and allow you some silence. So either way, I am just giving my thanks to you for showing up here today. And I hope you can give some thanks to yourself for taking the time to practice today. I hope that this allows for a much more grounded, supportive, and less reactive weekend ahead, and that you can enjoy the beautiful weather if you're here in Boston. All right. Thank you, everybody. Bye-bye.